Here. It's January 12th, 2022, and this morning I want to start off with a little game. The name of the game is Name That Quote, a game where I'm going to give you a quote, or at least at the start, just part of the quote. You'll think about it and think about who said it, and then I'll give a few seconds and then I'll give the rest of the quote, okay? So if you're ready, let's go. Who said, "Look at my coming on the first light"? Look at my coming on the first light. Now I'll finish the quote. Who said, "Look at my coming on the first light of the fifth day, at the dawn look to the east"? Now, for the fifth day might throw you off a little bit. It's obviously not Jesus. He came back on the third day. So who said this quote? Look to my coming on the first light of the fifth day. At dawn look to the east. Well, it wasn't actually a real person. These words were spoken by Gandalf the White in J.R.R. Tolkien's second book of the Lord of the Rings trilogy, the book The Two Towers. It was first published in 1954 and then later made into a major motion picture or a movie, as they say in today's vernacular. So if you've ever read the book, or if you've never read the book or seen the movie, these words were spoken by one of the main protagonists, one of the main characters, a good guy. His name was Gandalf, and he was a wizard, and he was trying to help a ragtag group of heroes form an alliance to stand against a great and rising evil, an evil that was sweeping the land and was going to destroy what was called Middle Earth. And this evil was already mounting forces, and it had its own armies, and they were armies of these tens of thousands of grotesque warriors bent on destruction. It was a real good versus evil scenario where evil vastly outnumbered good. And so, as the armies of evil came against the last stronghold, a fortress that was called Helm's Deep, there was the sunset, and there was these armies, these vast armies, intimidating armies, and the sun was setting, the fortress, these armies began their attack. If you've seen the book, you've read the movie. If you read the book or seen the movie, you'll know that the night got darker. A storm came. It was lit with lightning. Evil was just raging, and it broke through part of the fortress. And doom was all but imminent. The heroes of the story, they really didn't have a chance. So they regrouped themselves for one last glorious attempt, one last glorious attack, which they really had no hope of surviving. And as they charged out of the castle, dawn broke. And as dawn broke, they looked to the east. As the sun crested the hill, they looked, and there was Gandalf, their friend, but he was leading a massive cavalry charge. These warriors on horseback that were joined in the fight of good, and they swept down just in the nick of time, and good won the battle. The good guys were saved. And the funny thing is, if you read the book, if you watched the movie, you were caught up in the emotions of the battle of that night. You had all but forgotten, as the main characters had forgotten, Gandalf's words, his promise. They had forgotten in the story, we had forgotten as spectators, participants, watchers, that he would arrive, that he would come in time, or that, or as the battle raged on, that as it became hopeless, that he would arrive with enough help. So as the battle raged on, as the night got darker, their despair, their dread became deeper. There was this hopelessness that set in. And night can be a scary time, even a dreadful time, a hopeless time, a time in a very practical sense. Night comes and we can't see. We don't know what's out there. Uh, Practically, when night comes, my wife doesn't like to drive. She doesn't like driving in the dark. When you're camping in the wilderness, the sounds of the forest become a little scarier. Because if you're in the woods, you know that the predators are often active at nighttime. And our imaginations can get ramped up when we hear some rustling in the bushes. But not just in the bushes when we're camping, we know in the city. It's at night when things get really dangerous, when robberies and crimes go up. They all go up under the cover of darkness. Evil seems emboldened. And not only that, but sometimes our troubles seem bigger at night. I'm not just talking about the monster under the bed, but often in the middle of the night, we can't sleep. Our troubles become magnified, whether it's financial troubles or relational troubles. At night, our troubles can seem insurmountable. Can be problems at work or with friends or kids. Our problems we're going through with our kids can rob us of our sleep, leaving us tossing and turning in our beds. And it's not that these problems aren't real, but at night they can seem worse. I mean, even take for example in the book of Job. Job, if you've read the book of Job, the man had problems, real problems. He had lost everything. He had lost his family, he had lost his wealth, he had lost his health. He had he had lost everything of value. But in Job 7:4, he says, "When I lie down, I say, when shall I arise and the night be ended? For I have had my fill of tossing till dawn." Because night can be a scary time, a time of when our restlessness, our hopelessness is increased, our time of great anxiety, a time when evil is emboldened. And I'm not just now talking figuratively or literally. I want to talk figuratively. We sometimes feel um, when at nighttime, when things are getting dark, we feel evil is being emboldened. I mean, in John 13, Jesus was speaking of his departure. He spoke of his betrayal. He spoke of hard times that were going to come upon the disciples. He told them again that he was going to be crucified and that they were going to deny him. He was going to die. They were going to be deserted. And this news brought a great deal of anxiety. Darkness was mounting. Evil was growing. He was leaving, and he was the light of the world. But in the first three verses of chapter 14, Jesus tells them, "Let not your heart be troubled. Believe in God, believe also in me." He says, "In my Father's house there are many mansions or rooms. If it were not so, I would have told you. I go to prepare a place for you. And if I go to prepare a place for you, I will come again and receive you to myself, that where I am, there you may also be." And then skipping down several verses in verses 27 and verse 28, he says, "Peace I leave with you. My peace I give to you. Not as the world gives, do I give you. He says it again, let not your heart be troubled, neither let it be afraid. For you have heard me say, I am going away and coming back for you." This is this is the disciples in their despair, knowing darkness was gathering, knowing the light of the world was leaving. They could see these things happening, and it got them very much afraid. And he said, "My peace I leave with you. Let not your hearts be troubled." Why? Because he's coming back. It's like Gandalf saying, trying to give his friends security and hope when he says, "Look for my coming." So in our days, as the days seem to be darkening, when evil seems to be gathering more force and becoming more brazen, when we feel that attack is imminent or it's coming, when the enemy of our soul is becoming more and more organized and bolder in his defiance of God and his defiance of his son and his defiance of God's word, we don't have to fear. We don't have to be overtaken by anxiety or even question our survival or the church's survival. Why? Because he's coming back. He's coming back to take us where he is. This is where the Gandalf falls short, because he's not going to come back and fight the battle right away. He's going to take us from the battle. Evil, we know as we read the word, evil is going to overtake and flood over even the last fortresses of good. But God will have taken us with him. But he will come, the dawn will come, and he will eventually come back and fight. And and when he does, when he comes back, it will be over. nighttime will be over, so much so that in Revelation 21:25 it says, "There shall be no more night." So maybe we be encouraged this morning that no matter what we are facing, every night has a dawn, that He is coming back. But until He does, let us be faithful. Let us not lose heart. Let us not carry with us needless anxieties. And let our hearts not be troubled. Have a great day. Ciao.